record button. Right, so it says we're recording. Right, we're ready to rock and roll, boss.
Ready when you are, sir.
Right, well, here we are, guys. Another episode of Tell Skel. Today we've got a guy that has basically had a huge impact on my life. Lee Squires, head coach of London Men's Soccer. Lee was the coach that basically brought me out to America. Not to fully dive into all the background of that, but Lee, how are you doing? First and foremost, are you well?
I'm doing well, mate. Yeah, it's been a strange time. Last few months, it's been an adjustment, but yeah, we're all healthy and family as well, and playing a bit more golf than normal, so it's not all bad.
Good stuff. I mean, you said the family's well. Obviously, I know you've had a newborn brought into the world recently. Everything good with him?
Yeah, my daughter's just turned 3. My son's just turned 1. Again, everybody's healthy. Everybody's fine. Goes down, so they're not at the preschool, which is where my wife works. But so they've been running around the house, wreaking havoc. But no, it's been nice to spend more time with them than you would normally in your day-to-day routine. So that part's been definitely a positive.
Yeah, being able to be around them a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially at that age as well, where they're learning everything brand new every day. It's the only coaching I'm able to do at the minute.
That's brilliant. And I mean, keeping up to date with, your social medias and stuff, Lee, that's one thing I've realized you've kind of really posted out on your social media platforms. And I know you've started like the little email blasts, kind of finding ways to find a positive amongst everything that's going on right now. And I think that's, for someone like me, again, you've obviously already had a big impact on my life, but to still almost be around and looking and taking advice from you, how do you go around kind of setting out those positive mindsets? Like that thing where, like you said, you're a soccer coach, that's being put completely on hold. Such a massive part of your personality and your role, and it's been taken away from you by external factors. So how do you go around staying so positive, I guess?
Well, being a student athlete, that my job as a coach, hear him now. My job as a coach is, on the pitch, it's a couple of hours a day. So that part's been taken away. But in terms of,
oh, there you go. You come back. You just dropped in and out a little bit there.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. No worries.
Just finding ways to adapt. Whether, like I said, coaching on the pitch is a couple of hours a day. The rest of the time, you still got to be learning, be trying to improve. And what it has done, this time off has provided a lot of time to reflect on my own performance, on the performance of, the staff that I'm in charge of, my program as a whole, and kind of reevaluating what's important and how we can do better moving forward. So that, again, just while the 2 hours a day on the pitch has been taken away, it hasn't taken away the opportunity to do stuff that you're too busy for. You don't have time to do. Just being able to squeeze some of those things in and really analyze, what are we doing well, where are we heading, and sometimes you need to, if you're sat in the same 4 walls all the time, sometimes you need to take yourself out of that environment to be able to look at it a little bit differently and be refreshed, and just trying to take advantage of those opportunities, really. So
exactly. So it's not even, you've almost looked at it as it's not stopped. It's just the spotlight's on a different kind of area than, like you said, on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, you can choose to stand still and you won't make any progress, or you can choose to find different ways to move forward, and that's what I always try to do, whether it be in my personal life or professional life. Is try and find ways to get better. Be a little bit more reading. The email blast that I set up as a means to put some of my thoughts down on paper. Whether it impacts anybody else or not, I don't know. I mean, I've had some positive feedback on it, but it's almost more for my own benefit in being able to thoughts and put it out there. And then slowly but surely, people have started to respond to it and take ideas from it. And similar with the coaches interviews. I've done 4 now, similar to what you're doing here. And I could talk all day on what I've learned from 4 coaches that I somewhat knew and definitely admire and respect, and from different backgrounds. And yeah, you can always learn from anybody really, whether positively or negatively. So trying to take that time to self-reflect and adapt and still continue to learn, even if we can't be on the pitch a couple of hours a day, which we're all missing and we all want to do. So
yeah, seriously. So I mean, we've touched on it a little bit there, Lee, about how you are a head coach of a college in America, South Carolina to be specific. For anyone that's not really up to knowledge of that whole world, that system, let's say, for example, I've just finished school in England. I'm 16. Let's say I finished sixth form, I'm 18. I'm looking for the next chapter of my life. If you were to give a little bit of a real brief summary, I guess, of what the college American system is, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, for boys like yourself and myself a few years before coming through, when you're done at 18 or you get released from clubs, it's a big question of what's next. And the reality is a lot of lads are not prepared for whatever that is, and end up taking a gap year. But if it's, you can go, you can stay in England and you can be in university back home and work your way up through the semi-professional ranks. And possibly, Jamie Vardy is one of those 1 in a million stories where he works his way up from lower league all the way to the Premier League in England. But for most people, that's not going to be possible. So in looking to continue your education at a university level, but also combine that with playing a good standard of football and opening up different opportunities and experiences in a different country, a scholarship in the States definitely provides that. So you start to put kind of a CV or a resume together, a bit of video, start contacting coaches, and then kind of go from there and find the best fit for you in terms of what you want to study, and perhaps location or finances, or the strength of the soccer program. You got to combine all those factors to find what's best for you. Then really then the world's your oyster. It opens up so many more opportunities, both here and if you eventually move back to your home country. It gives you 4 years of an experience that it's tough to get anywhere else.
Absolutely.
So I know that's what it's done for me. That's what it's done for you. And it's at a time at 18 to 22 years old where you're growing up, you're becoming more independent, you're maturing, you're going from boy to man. So it's a real key time in your life as a man to figure out what path you want to go down, and it's certainly one that can open up many an opportunity. I've got a cat here jumping up on me. So yeah, it's just a fantastic experience. Providing you get the right advice and you end up in a good spot, with the right people, and surround yourself with good people, then it can not say change your life, but certainly transform it in a way that you maybe didn't think about when you were 18 and getting released or leaving college.
Right. I mean, you kind of touched on it there about, when you finish, let's say, again, painting a picture of a guy that's just been released of a YT 18. What's next? You've had this expectation of what you want your life to be, and again, an external force has changed that or taken it away from you. And I think you said there how that 18 to 22 is a big pivotal time for growth in regards to everything, as a man, like you said, as a person, as a player, as a career. And one of the things that I decided to come to America was, again, you touched on it, kind of finished playing football at 18 in England. I actually got offered something, but I thought, what's the light at the end of the tunnel of this? Like you said, you try and climb the ladder, you try and play in the long leagues and hope that you do well and you can get a new club and continue that drive. Or it was this opportunity of America. And what kind of made me jump into it, Lee, was I thought, if all else fails in regards of the football. 4 years of living in the United States with, I've touched on it in previous podcasts, you becoming my emergency contact, to where if anything goes wrong, yourself over a few of these type of phone calls, video chats, is the only way we knew each other. You become Jordan Skelton's in trouble. Who's your emergency contact? Head coach Lee Squires. You know, mum, dad, whoever's the carers are thousands of miles away, and that responsibility can either, it can go one of two ways. I feel like it can lift somebody, or it can be, I'm not quite there yet. So to go into that, a question for you, Lee, you know, you kind of bring a player over with a rough expectation of what they're going to be like. So what's it like to bring someone over, and firstly, let's say they come over and they thrive, you know, versus bringing someone over and it just wasn't quite what you expected or what they expected, and how you deal with both of those kind of different ends of the spectrum, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I could have come out at 18. I had an offer from a big Division 1 school in New York, and at 18, I wasn't ready for that. So I decided to go to university in England for a year. Literally the first week at university back home, I wished I'd have taken that opportunity, but I think it allowed me a bit more time to prepare myself. I was a year older than coming out at 19. So it really depends. You came out, you know, straight away, but I think you were, you know, in your character, I think you were ready, you know, to come out straight away. I don't think you needed that extra year to prepare yourself. And so it really depends on, you know, each individual's character. Some people, you know, take to it straight away. Some people take a little bit longer. You know, recruiting the talent is maybe the cat's recruiting the talent is maybe the
wants to get involved.
There you go. He wants to give his opinion. You know, so recruiting the talent is maybe the easier part. You know, you see video, you see them in person, you can see whether somebody's technically or tactically proficient enough. The hardest thing for us to kind of gauge is whether somebody is, you know, mentally ready for that challenge. And we've had many a good player come over, settle in straight away and blossom and end up like yourself at a professional level. Other good players that, you know, after a semester, they're ready to go home. And you really, as much as we do our research, as much as a coach, we try and get to know the individual as much as we can before we come over or bring them out. You really don't 100% know how it's going to go. Sometimes we've been pleasantly surprised, and other times we've been surprised on the other end of the spectrum in terms of we think it was going to be. And then there's other kids that, you know, come out and surprise you. So all we can do when they arrive is like you said, we're their go-to for everything. So I think we picked you up from the airport. We took you straight to Walmart. We bought a bed. We got all your personal needs. And then, you know, it's 110 degrees. You don't know where you're going. You don't really have that much form of communication. But it is a lot easier now than even in 2007 when I came out. The first couple of months, I was purchasing an old school phone card, going to the payphone, dialing like 600 digits just to get 10 minutes on the phone with my mom. At least now, you know, at least now with iPhones and FaceTime and, you know, things like that, WhatsApp and different social medias, it's a lot easier to stay connected to your loved ones. I mean, my flight was actually delayed coming into New York the very first time I came out. So I missed my connection. I didn't have any means at all to contact my coach, didn't have any means to contact my family. So here's me at 19 years old, stuck in the middle of New York overnight. And my parents are just, you know.
Where is he? Is he made it? Is he?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
Happened? Yeah.
Not knowing. And then the people on the other end in North Carolina waiting to pick me up didn't know I was delayed. So they got stuck. And yeah, I mean, now you can, you know, land and send a quick message. But
now you can make the phone call on the plane, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a lot easier now, but still it doesn't negate the fact that a young 18, 19-year-old lad is coming the other side of the world, not knowing what to expect, not really knowing who's picking him up. Like I said, because most of the time it's just these kind of conversations. You may meet the person once, actually in person, which helps, but it's not the reality for everybody. So
Yeah.
try and support them and be there for them and give them as much as they can off the pitch, because if they're feeling good and settled, then they're going to perform better on it. So it's managing the person a lot more than it is managing the player, particularly early on.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting point that you say that, Lee, because it's like you say, when you are coming across to America, it is, and I know it's for the edge. You like, we haven't really touched on it, but basically, if you come across to America, you study for your college degree whilst playing soccer. But I know for someone like myself, I came out here thinking I want to be a pro, and the getting a degree while studying or while still striving for the pro was a bonus almost. But at the same time, you're only really playing football for 20% of your time there. Like you said, 3 hours a day maybe on the football pitch, where you get to the locker room an hour before you train for whatever, and then you're out. So for someone that kind of comes out to America and maybe starts feeling a little bit homesick, starts questioning, like, is this right for me? Maybe he isn't doing very well in the classroom, isn't getting the playing time on the pitch. How do you kind of support someone that's going through all that adversity when it feels like, oh, I'm ready to give this up, I'm ready to go home? What's your direction in supporting that person or player?
Yeah, I think it comes down to man management and communicating with that individual as much as possible. Because you've played for me for 4 years, we have a pretty good, but even with that, players have got to have the courage to still use that open door policy and come in and talk to somebody when things aren't going right, because you say that it's only a couple of hours a day on the pitch, but to make it to the professional level or to all region, all American at the college level, it's much more than just 2 hours a day. It's almost more important what you do outside of those 2 hours a day in how you live in your lifestyle. Is your hydration and nutrition good? Is your sleeping patterns on point? Are you diligent in the weight room? Are you making sure you're on track? You spend more time relaxing and recovering.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you've got to find that balance. If you're too focused and too zoned in on and not the process and the steps along the way, then you're going to get lost a little bit, because that end goal can, if your end goal is to be a pro and that's all you're focused on, it can seem so far away that you never feel like you're making progress. Whereas you just focus on the steps day by day and in doing the right things on and off the pitch, then it can seem, you're having a lot more smaller victories than you are focused on, the ultimate end goal, because it's 4 years until you do or don't make it. And even then it might not be enough. So try and set yourself small goals along the way. Don't be afraid, be brave enough to ask for help when you need it. I think that's a big one from a player's perspective. And then as a coach, you try and check on the player's well-being. Sometimes you may have to go through a teammate or a leader or a captain to see whether,
like a middleman. Yeah.
Whether somebody on the team is having a good time. Because you've had teammates that have gone through real tough times, and until it came to light, we would never have known about it, because people do a good job of hiding things. People deal with things in different ways and internally, and sometimes you can spot signs, but and sometimes we get so wrapped up in winning and the next game that we lose sight of the fact that people are tired, or people are stressed or anxious, or
absolutely,
got issues with their missus, or there's a problem with a loved one back home, or academically they're struggling, whatever the issues are. Sometimes the games Wednesday, Saturday, you lose sight of the fact that there's a lot more that goes into it before and after game day. So as a coach, try not to get wrapped up sight of the fact that we're all people at the end of the day, and
Yeah,
that's what I've learned more as I've got older and more experienced.
absolutely. And I mean, you've made a great point there, Lee, about how, you know, you can very easily get wrapped up in just like output. How are you doing on the pitch? You know, and I think it's kind of, I know it's became quite a talked about topic within the last 5 years, like mental health in the game of football and soccer. And what's kind of a double barrel, I guess, with coming to America is you have the stuff on the pitch, and then you have all the other stuff in regards of, like you said, family back home, classroom. You can very easily get sucked into worrying about things that aren't the pitch, you know. And I think if you can handle all those externals, like coming to America can be an incredible opportunity. Because as you said, like, I spent 4 years with you at Lander University, and I think most of my class have went on to do really good things. You know, like we've got, like you said, a few boys in the pros, and we've got one boy that just bought his own house. I seen a couple of weeks ago.
Down the street from me.
Down the street from yourself. So, like, as much as it is, you know, there is a lot that can go wrong, quote unquote. There is, on the other side of the coin, so much that can go right. And there's as much as, like you said, staying in America and thriving, or going back home and taking everything you've learned and putting that into works. Because as you said, if there's two individuals that are applying for the same job, and one resume or CV says degree in America, spent 4 years, and the other one says went to the University of, I don't know, Newcastle, there's a completely different ball game on the individual that spent time in America, because they've had experiences that, like you said, you can't replace that unless you do it.
Yep.
So I mean, to lead into another thing, Lee, you know, we've touched on kind of recruiting players. What is it you would say you kind of would look for in assessing a player? So I know, because I've spent the time in your office helping you out with this, like, you know, looking at highlight videos and what do you think of this player? What do you think of that player? You get barrels of them, you know. What is a standout thing? If there was one thing you'd put on, this guy has got this, or this player shows this, is the standout thing for Coach Lee Squires?
I say it's one thing, but it could be a multitude of things within that one thing. So I look for somebody who's a little bit different. And
okay,
how somebody can be a little bit different could be unbelievably technically, or unbelievable at winning the ball back, or just looks like a natural goal scorer, whatever it, you know, because you've sat there and gone through them with me. We see so many videos, and it's looking for that one that just is a little bit different, that one that just stands out, and you don't know necessarily what it is until you see it, because every player is different. So, you know, does he do something just a little bit out of the ordinary? Is he willing to take players on, or can he finish, you know, one touch with both feet, or, you know, a little bit of movement to get across your defender? Or is he 6'4" towering centre half that you can see, you know, with the arm actions on a video, he's directing, he's leading, he's leading every header. Is he stepping out from the back into midfield and wrapping passes, breaking lines into your forward's feet, or whatever it is, that's something a little bit different, that's something a little bit unique that you don't see every day. Because normally if they're expressing that on the pitch, then chances are they're expressing it in their character as well, because you know, because you're recruiting these players from all different countries. I don't get to go and watch them in person 6 times, 7 times. Sometimes we are reliant on the video and on recommendations from maybe an agency or a coach or whoever, you know, whoever they're learning from. So, you know, without being able to sit down and actually analyze 6-7 games or speak to them in person, you're kind of looking for those things in a video that suggests, they might have that. And again, you don't know. He's got a bit, you know.
Yeah.
It's not the most technical football term in the world, but
Yeah.
someone who's got a bit of something different, a little bit unique, stands out a little bit, does something a little bit different to your average Joe who sends you a video every other day. So it's not a specific answer in a sense.
Yeah, it's not necessarily he can cross the ball or he can score goals. It's just something that stands out.
Yeah, I don't want my centre mid just to be able to receive from one centre back and pass to the other one. Like, you know, I can recruit any old Joe to do that, but you know, can you do something a little bit different with it? You know, can you show those standard qualities, but then and some, you know, a little bit more. So it's it's maybe a strange answer. It's one specific thing that's not very specific.
No, it actually makes perfect sense, Lee, because again, me playing for you, I can see that in the 4 years of the guys that you brought in. You know, there's a few guys straight off the bat that, oh yeah, that's what he's seeing, or that's what he's seeing. And you also mentioned there about how you're bringing in players from all over the world, because that's one thing that I think must be daunting for some guys, because obviously I was blessed enough that you were an English coach, I'm English, you know, we're from the same country. I know in my 4 years, there's once or twice a guy came across, he couldn't really speak English. You know, and I mean, how do you go around kind of dealing with those different cultures? Because like for someone that's never met a different culture, someone from a different country, it is like a different species. Some people just do things completely different. Like we had teammates from France, Germany, Colombia, Sweden, Finland. Like we had guys from all over the place. So what was it like to kind of, firstly, you have to recruit players from different cultures, and secondly, dealing with different people?
I think that's something that as a program and as a coach, we've always embraced, because if we have an entire starting, I mean, we are heavily British, and we usually have been. Most of my knowledge is in terms of recruiting, aside from the US. So, but if you have 11 Brits in a starting 11 who've all had the same background, who all speak the same language, it goes. We're going to be pretty generic. You know, there's not going to be much to us. We're going to be a very British team, and whatever the stereotypes are within that. You had somebody from France who's got a different education, a different background, sees the game a little bit differently. It helps me improve as a coach. It helps our players learn from those different cultures. It brings, you know, something different to the team, on and off the pitch as well. So you got a South American personality, stereotypically, is different from a European personality or an African personality. So, you know, blending all those different personalities and experiences is one of the exciting things about what we do. So, you know, bringing that then to the pitch and the style of play that we want to put out there, you know, learning from everybody's strengths and weaknesses and merging all those different characteristics is what makes us that little bit different. You know, we don't want to be a one-trick pony. We don't want to have one particular style of play or one formation or one standout player that if you shut him down, you've got nothing else. If you have a lot of different things, then you're going to be, as long as you're able to put them together, you're going to be a little bit more formidable and more difficult to stop. So, yeah, we certainly embrace those different cultures, those different backgrounds, different, and it's not just different countries; it's different races, different religions, different economic backgrounds. You know, but at the end of the day, everybody's still coming from somewhere into a Greenwood, South Carolina environment, and they're kind of thrown in the deep end, and it helps when you can come together and help each other through it.
And you make a great point there, Lee, about how all these guys come from all over the world, like you said, different cultures, races, religions, and they're all striving for the same goal. And that was one of the reasons why I tell people when they're thinking about coming to America, I tell them, do it. Because you're going to be exposed to people who are from all over the place, and it's incredible to be exposed and experience different cultures. And it's why I partly thought about starting this podcast, is because I've been lucky enough to play on soccer teams where I've got teammates from all over the world. and I have friends back home in England that have only ever seen it on a TV screen, you know, and it's awesome to be exposed to those different lifestyles, different beliefs, different cultures, because sometimes you think they're doing it better than the way I'm doing it in regards of things like, I remember I had a teammate from France that he said years ago, vegan. He said it years ago about being vegan, and at the time I was like, you've got no idea.
No, you got to eat meat to get big and strong, ain't you?
Yeah, seriously. And then we look at it today, and it's going crazy. So it's like, you know, unless you are exposed to these, you would never know. And I mean, how do you go around recruiting someone from France that the player maybe doesn't speak a lick of English and you're speaking to his parents or guardians? Yeah. How's that about?
Sometimes it's a challenge, you know. Someone like young Thibaut, that, you know, that 2-hour car ride from Charlotte Airport was
speak
difficult.
A word of English.
No, he couldn't. Yeah. He couldn't. But you look at him now, and we've given him an opportunity, and he's thriving. He's probably better English than me and you. But so it's great to be able to give people those opportunities. I think, you know, when you're recruiting somebody from a different country, you try as a bridge. So maybe you've had, you know, we had a couple of French players before Thibaut, for example, that you can sort of connect with. And, you know, if I can't get across for him to understand my point of view, I can do it through somebody else. So usually there's a connection, whether it be an older player or an alumni, or, you know, a coaching connection that speaks better English. So what to expect, and hope to God they can understand it, and you know, and it works. So, but I think
you kept breaking up and jumping back in there, Lee. So I think we missed a bit of that. But you started off talking about Thibaut, and, you know, we were talking about, you know, someone's background, someone's story, and not to kind of dive into Thibaut's, but we both know his background and his life, and for someone like that to come over and put his I guess current status of life in your hands as a coach, you must feel a lot of, like, I guess, pride and responsibility to see that guy go on and do well. And how does that feel, you know, as a human, you know, taking a step back from a coach as a human being?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the championships, the wins, the bus rides, they're all memorable. They're all fantastic, and a lot of why we do it. But, you know, to be able to give somebody like him an opportunity he wouldn't necessarily have had, and it's not, you know, he's maximized that opportunity. I just gave him, you know, sort of a leg up. So, and leave as a 22, 23-year-old man, and have them go on to do what they want to do. You know, you're playing at the professional level. That was always your goal. Down in Florida, to see them go on to make something of themselves, to take advantage of that opportunity that we, you know, help to facilitate. That's you know, to see him go get married or buy a house or have kids or, you know, whatever. I've been doing this about 10 years now, and that's still, you know, to keep up with some of those boys, to see what they go on to do is arguably the most rewarding thing, without a doubt. Because
that's what I'm saying. You've played a part. You've played a part in kind of, I guess, given that, like you said, you're not making it happen for them, but you've played a part in directing their path to where they are right now. And I mean, for that point, Lee, you kind of touched on it earlier about how you came through the American system yourself, played at Lees McRae in North Carolina. Is that South Carolina?
Yeah, North Carolina.
North Carolina. And you graduated, sadly had some big injuries at the end of your college year before you graduated. That if those didn't happen, the life might have been very, very different. So what I want to direct with that question is, how is it different to deal with adversity as a player, injuries, losses, defeats, not getting picked, to dealing with adversities as a coach, losses, players getting injured, you know, not getting the recruit you'd hope to get? How does it play a different face.
I think for me personally, it's almost the exact same process, I guess. But now as a coach, I've got a lot more experience because of all those previous losses or setbacks or whatever. I think having a major injury as a player allows me to relate to somebody who has one.
Right.
One of my players having one now as a coach.
Because you've been through it.
Yeah, losing a national final as a player allows me to relate to that when I do it as a coach or the championship, or in any game. And I think my attitude to it, my mentality has always been, what's next? Don't dwell on that previous loss.
You've just dropped off there. You've just come back. You said do not focus on the loss. What's next?
Yeah, exactly, and that's been my mentality throughout. Even as a player, as a striker, if you miss one chance, get me another one. That was always my net. Right. That was always my mentality. So, if we lost the game, get ready for the next one. If we lost, a national final, get ready for the next season.
Get ready for the next season. Yeah.
If I graduated, all right, what's next? So you're always looking forward. It's always good to reflect and look back and learn, but my mentality has always been to look forward, look ahead. There's Brian McMahon at PBA, when I interviewed him a few weeks ago, he said something similar, as coaches we're never satisfied. There's a story about Nick Saban, and he was interviewed after Alabama won one of their college football national titles, literally 5 minutes after, and everybody's celebrating, they're lifting the trophy, and I think the reporter said something like, how are you going to celebrate this win? And he said, well, I'm off recruiting tomorrow, preparing for the next one. So, you enjoy the good moments, you learn from the bad ones, but you always, need to just look ahead, look forward, and keep trying to learn and get better. And, what's next has always been my mentality. So
absolutely massive.
I can pass that on to the players. I think you can spend a lot of time reflecting on something you've not done well. A lot of times it's counterproductive. So I told you that, you used to make 20 passes in the first half, connect 19 of them, and then come off at halftime thinking about the one you didn't connect. Well, you're not going to make 20 out of 20 very often. So, learn from it, and,
No, absolutely. And there's two things you've kind of sprouted thought in my mind there, Lee, about. Firstly, when you're talking about the Nick Saban case, when he's saying how, how you're going to celebrate this win, he says, I'm already thinking about the next one. I think that strive and never being satisfied is a huge part of what makes the great. There's one of the first podcasts you recommended on your email blast, that was the one with Jake Humphreys, and I forget the other guy he has on there, but he had Rio Ferdinand on there on one. I remember Ferdinand, I think they've just won the Champions League, and he talked about how in the afterwards, the dinner to celebrate the win, Rio said he went up to the chairman and said, so who we're getting for next season?
Yeah.
And the chairman said, listen, Rio, just enjoy this moment. And Rio was saying, no, I want to win more. And that's what I think, that hunger, that drive to want more, to chase more is a great part of what can make the great. And also you touched on there about me personally, is like you said, I think it can also be a blessing and a curse, because like you said, if you're striving for perfect, you're never going to get there.
No.
Because perfect doesn't exist. So, I kind of already know the answer to this, but for people listening, what would you tell me is a player that is obviously driven and wants to be as best as he can be, but also that can very much become a negative? What would you say to someone with that type of mindset?
I think it's what kind of weight you put on each side of it. So using the example that I used with you, at 20 half, 19 were connected, 1 weren't. We can briefly touch on 5 or 10 seconds. Here's why or how you misplaced that one, right? But then we can spend more time talking about, the 19 that you connected. You're doing a great job at breaking lines, or you're doing a great job switching it from right to left. You're doing a great job finding a fullback to open out and play forward. This is how we need more of this in the second half to be more successful. So that's a very small example, but just attributing more value and more weight to the positives than,
Right.
spending 3 minutes at halftime talking about the one you misplaced
Right.
and 10 seconds talking about the ones that you did well. So, I mean, it could be the one pass you misplaced could have been, a bobbly, roll of the ball across the pitch. It's something you can't control. So
Right.
we'll control the controllables as much as we can, and just put more emphasis on what can help you moving forward. Looking at both sides of it, but what weight you attribute to, and I think that's what you had a problem with early on. You put more emphasis on the few negatives rather than emphasizing the many positives that you would have had in a first half performance. So just what value you attribute to, the ones that are able, like me, for example, if I'd have missed 3 chances in the first half but scored 1, I would never dwell on those 3 chances. You know, a muscle memory, I'd remember the one that I scored and I'd be buzzing for the next one. So just in your mind, how you process that information, how you filter it out, and what you retain and what you don't. There's no reason to remember one bad pass. It's 1 out of 20. So that'd be the thought process I would try and educate somebody with as much as possible.
Yeah, and I remember you went through it with me. I remember that was the words you told me, was just like, you're almost like, you said, being too hard on yourself. What about the other 19 passes in a game?
But like you said, though, sometimes it can be a positive because it shows that you're that competitive. It shows that you're striving for that level of excellence, and you don't want to take that away from somebody either. So it's finding that balance between not losing that edge and not losing that desire to be perfect, but also, not dwelling on things that don't go your way, because there's so many variables within a 90-minute match that, you're not going to place every pass perfectly. You're not going to win every header. You're not going to finish every chance. So it's that filter system of what you retain and what you learn to help you get better for the second half or the next game or the next week. So,
and you touched on it a little bit there, Lee. Control the controllables. It's a huge one, right? I imagine as a player, as a coach, it's a huge part of a mindset you encourage your players to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many variables within a game, from the weather to the state of the pitch to the referee's decisions to maybe an opposition players trying to wind you up, or whatever it might be.
Been through it all, haven't we? Been through it all.
You can't control the actions or the pitch or the ball or whatever, but you can control your reaction to them. So I think that's the most important thing is how you respond to a bad referee decision, or how you respond to the opposition trying to wind you up, or the weather, or the size of the pitch, or we used to struggle for some reason. Mid-afternoon, 90-degree heat, Sunday afternoon kickoffs.
You talk about getting 10 Brits. That's probably it.
Yeah. It's almost inexplicable. We can't control the weather. Maybe we have to adapt our game plan a little bit, but just focus on the things that you can control, which is yourself and your reactions and your communication and your work ethic, and everything else will fall into place. Right.
Absolutely agree. And one of the things I always like to ask guests on here, Lee, is the 10-year either side of where you are right now. So let's say 10 years down the line, I'll not throw your age out there. 10 years down the line, where does Lee Squires want to see his life?
That's a tough one to answer, because I don't know. In 10 years' time, I want to be a better version of the person I am right now. And I'd like to think that right now I'm a better version of the person I was 10 years ago. And maybe that's a sitting on the fence answer.
No, it's not. It's a great answer.
But, and I've changed my mindset since I've been at Lander, because I left Lees McRae. I came to Lander thinking, all right, 3 or 4 years, win a couple of Peach Belt championships or maybe a national championship, and that Division 1 school will come calling. And then 3 or 4 years there, and I'll be at the pro level. And life just doesn't work like that, and you have to be prepared for an opportunity when it comes along, but you also have to be giving everything you've got on a day-to-day basis to maximize where you are right now. And
Right.
there's as much chance of me being at Lander in 10 years as not, maybe more. So I have to prepare as if I'm going to be here, but also be prepared if a different or better opportunity comes up. So just to continue to learn, to grow, and in 10 years' time, be an even better role model for my kids and for my players, and whatever environment I'm in at that point. And
Yeah.
that's the I guess the start and the finish of it.
No, I think that's perfectly, and again, it relates back to what you talked about a little bit earlier about, you know, if you look at America as 4 years, and you think about 4 years down the line, it can be very daunting. It can feel miles away. Whereas if you just look at it day by day, week by week, semester by semester, whatever it is, and make the best of that current little space of time you're in, the rest will take care of itself, like you said. And I mean, you obviously kind of had a sharp change up of what your ideas was going to be when you finished college, becoming a college coach at 20, 23, 24.
23 was when I came back to Lees McRae as a head coach, yeah.
And that's, for people that don't really know the college coaching world, that is very, very young to be head coach, at least, right? And I mean, how was it to go from this is what's going to happen to then this is what's going to happen? Because it again connects to what you've just said there of making the best of what you've got.
Yeah, I think, you know, I certainly didn't expect it, but throughout my experiences as a player and leading up to that moment, I was prepared and brave enough to take on that challenge. I knew I was grossly inexperienced and I was going to make a lot of mistakes, but I was never afraid to make those mistakes. I was going to make them my way. I didn't have an assistant coach really for the first 3 years. So, you know, it was literally all on me. And then I went back in. I was then coaching 6 months after I graduated. So I was coaching a lot of players that I played with, that I'd
Teammates,
that I'd been out for a beer with, that I'd, you know, done some things with that maybe the coach-player relationship shut down. But no, I think, you know, as long as you're honest with people, as long as you're direct, and as long as you treat them with respect, reciprocated, and I was fortunate I'd had a decent playing career and could sort of rely on that respect off the bat.
right.
But you just take it in stride, and I was brave enough to make those mistakes. It's not whether you can score or not. It's whether you're brave enough to miss. And
Yeah.
if you're big enough and sort of man enough to be able to take whatever criticism or, you know, responsibility on your shoulders if it don't go your way, and I was willing to do that. I was willing to, whatever mistakes I was going to make, which I knew I was going to make, I was brave enough to take those on, learn from them, and try and then do better. And the first season was great. We won 15 games and went to national tournament and won a game. And it was a continuation of the previous success we'd had in my 4 years there as a player. All of a sudden, the second year, we won 3 games. And, you know, I learned a lot more.
Yeah.
Learned a lot more in that season. At that point, I even considered, right, wait, is this enough for me? I mean, is this the right path for me? With, you know, 5
completely
years
questioned your confidence and your ability, and yeah,
it does. It puts doubt in your mind. You know, winning 3 games for a team that's made 5 straight national tournaments, you know, and been to the national final 2 or 3 years before that was, you know, you look at yourself and think, wow, maybe I'm not very good at this. But then, you know, you sort of inner strength kicks in to sort of override those feelings of doubt. No, I can do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it right. And I learned from my mistakes. And I think we won 9 games the 3rd year, 13 games the 4th year. And then I arrived at Lander. So again, it's if I'd have taken all that inner doubt and that lack of belief and confidence and made that the priority and let that, you know, not filter that out, then I would have been in a much different position maybe than I am now. We would have won maybe 2 games the next year. So I was able to filter that out. I was able to process it, learn from it, focus on the positives, and ultimately think about what's next and how do we do better. So yeah, it was a strange situation, but one I was brave enough to take on, knowing I was going to make mistakes, and was able to filter out, you know, some of the negative stuff and just concentrate on getting better and ultimately move forward.
So what would you say to someone, Lee, that gets trapped in that second year that you just talked about? What would you say to someone that, because like you said, first year of your playing career in America, brilliant. National final, was it?
Third year was a national final, but first year, I scored a lot of goals. I was an All-American. We went to an Elite Eight. Second year was a continuation of that. Third year was a final. Fourth year was another national tournament, and then, back into coaching straight away after that.
So, but what would you say to someone that gets, because you mentioned there about how great 1 year, the next year, hang on, what's going wrong? Why aren't we winning? Am I as good as I think I am? You mentioned how you had the inner strength to kind of pull yourself out of that little grout, that little rut of I'm not sure, doubt, fear, whatever you want to call it. How would you kind of pull someone out of that's stuck in it, and that is allowing those negative things to suffocate their mindset or their view or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it happens to players all the time. You go through, a purple patch where you're buzzing and you're playing really well every week, and then you feel like you've never played football in your life. And you just can't control the ball, you can't pass the ball, you miss timing tackles, whatever it might be. So I think that, in those moments when it's not going right, it's just get your head down and work even harder. I think that's all you can do. And normally it correlates, because when, I was a striker, if I'm going through a couple of games without a goal, you start then trying to do too much. You start you take yourself out of the environment, you drop a little deeper, or you run a little wider. You got to keep putting yourself in the same situations that you were in before, and not being afraid to miss, or being afraid to fail. And that's what a lot of people do. When it's not going right, they'll shy away from that, and they'll do something slightly different. Well, if you do that, you're not doing what's made you successful in your purpose.
Right.
So it's just get your head down, continue to work hard, keep doing the right things, keep putting yourself in the same positions, and trust that your ability, or your teammates' ability, or your coach's ability will pull you through it. And you'll be surprised that if you do that and you stick with it, and you are brave enough to take the consequences when it's not going right, whether next week or next month, it will start to be better, because you've already proven that you can do it. So just keep your head down and keep working hard. Try and, again, filter out the stuff that's not going to help you. Control what you can control, but don't shy away from the things that have made you successful before.
Yeah, I think that's so truly. You try and feel like in that current bad patch of form, like you said, you start thinking, I'm not enough. I need to do more, and then you start taking away from what you were doing to get you there, and then you start feeling like, hang on, what's my value? And that's when, like you said, you can go into a heavy place. And it's like you said, just be confident in your ability to keep doing what you're doing, what you're good at, in the form. And I think you touched on it there, the hard work. Maybe something that I've learned in my playing career is, don't be focused on, like we touched on earlier, the 19 out of 20 passes. Be focused on the hard work. Be focused on the intensity, and let the other things follow, almost like the non-negotiables, I guess. And that's something that I knew you would say in our locker room. And you touched on it a little bit earlier about not being afraid to miss. Like I know you used to always say that to strikers. Used to always say that to, when we would have the centre halves come and join in the shooting practice. Look, he's not afraid to miss.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a centre back, you come into a finishing drill, you think you're
Alan Shearer,
Messi or Ronaldo all of a sudden, and that's but that's the mentality that you need. You've got to be confident in that environment, and you find that when things aren't going so well, you think in your mind, you think, oh, I've got to go and dribble past 3 players and stick it in the top corner to get
Right.
yourself out of a dry patch. And that's never the way you get out of a dry patch. It's the deflection off your backside, or it's
Yeah.
dubious penalty that you didn't think you were going to get. That
Right.
So instead of being kind of like what we said earlier, instead of focusing on the end goal over 4 years of trying to become a pro, focus on the steps that it takes to get there. So
Right.
for a striker, if I focus on scoring that next goal, I'm not then processing my movement or my hold-up play or my positioning inside the box, and you get lost on that end goal and you forget the steps. You're blinded by the steps that it takes to get there. So just making things a little bit easier to digest by not focusing on the big thing, just focus on one little thing at a time, and then it'll start to work itself out, because you don't become a bad player or a bad coach overnight. Now, if you're having 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, or half a season
Right.
in a row, then maybe you're not good enough. And if I'd have had 3 or 4 losing seasons in a row, then maybe I'm not good enough at it. But I was confident that I was just, one season blip that, and there are certain excuses or reasons I can attach to that season. I mean, our best centre-back, centre-mid and striker basically all redshirted and had season-ending injuries. Take the spine of your team out, you're a lot different.
Right.
We had a very young squad after having a very old squad the year before. So, there are also other factors that you can't necessarily control that have an impact on that as well. So just going back to controlling what you can control and having belief in yourself that, you are doing things right. And more often than not always, but more often than not, it'll go the way that, it's supposed to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've got a last couple of points here, Lee, because I know me and you can talk till the cows come home. But yeah, I can. I certainly can. We talked about 10 years ahead. Let's say you go back to that rookie year of being a college coach. If there was something you could tell yourself then, from what you know now, what would that, I wish I knew then what I know now, what would that be?
I think if you're only, again, it goes towards the end goal. If championships and trophies is what you're judging your success by, I think you're always going to feel unfulfilled. And what I mean by that is that there's so much that goes into getting to those championships, and then trophies are great. And I've always been very statistically driven as a striker and wanted to win the awards, and you were the same. I think you valued that because it was validation of what all the hard work that you put in. But if you strive for championships, yes, but appreciate and understand the steps that it takes along the way, because if you only judge it by championships, you're never gonna feel a sense of achievement or satisfied. I look a lot more now at the connections that I make with people, the impact that I can have on people. I'm proud of the fact that all the assistant coaches that we've had in the last 5 years have gone on to do, great things, either on their own business or get married or move on to a great Division 1 schools or, whatever it might be. So, judging achievement and judging by success by a different metric than what I initially set out to do. As a coach, it was about winning. It was about, in the first couple of years, it was all about winning. Now it's more about the overall impact. And if you do a lot of things right, then you're going to win trophies. They're going to be a byproduct of all the work that you put in.
Right.
But it's the work that you put in that's more valuable than the byproduct of what it offers afterwards. So it took me a while, maybe really into a couple of years, initiated that, and it seems to be pretty common theme. Like all the interviews that I've done, that's some of the advice that coaches older and more experienced than me have offered to me as well. And I think having kids has certainly helped me appreciate that even more, that it's less about those tangible rewards than it is about impacting people and the steps along the way. So that'd be 22-year-old self 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not that we don't want to win. It's just
Huh.
look at all the other perspectives as well, because I know that's something that, like, with us at Landa, it was, we were very competitive. We wanted to win, and it's like you said, it's just that's not what it's all about. It's a big,
I mean, I'm as competitive as I've ever been. I just maybe display it in a different way. Like, as a 9-year-old kid going bowling with my family, if I didn't win, I would throw a tantrum. I'd be screaming. I'd be shouting, and that's a 9-year-old kid at family bowling. I don't do that anymore because I've learned how to process a loss or process a setback a little bit better. And coming home to young kids definitely eases the disappointment of a loss, and it also, makes you get over a win quicker as well, because you've got responsibilities. Right. You're back to your day job of being a dad. So it's helped me process the ups and downs of football to stay, a little bit more level-headed across the board, not get so emotionally wound up, goes down when it's not, and just take the rough with the smooth and bounce back when it don't go well, and keep striving and what's next when it does go well.
Absolutely. And for the last thing here, Lee, to bring our chat to a close, what's something that you would recommend to a player, a coach, a person to get better? Whether it would be a book, whether it would be a habit, what's one thing that has left a mark on Lee Squires' life?
So there's so much, and I've learned this in the last sort of 3 months with looking at so many books and interviews, and so much content out there that that's the easy part. To find the content is easy. I think the trick is to process that content, pull out the parts that sort of are you. Not trying to, because you might read something and think, oh, that sounds good, and you'll do it for a month and then you'll forget about it, and then you'll find another buzzword or something that is a fad. And what's important is you stay true to yourself. You pull out the things that you can resonate with, and that you match what your beliefs and philosophy are, to enhance you. You don't want to change who you are. You're a very vocal, competitive, driven individual. If you read a book that is, shows you, kind of counteracts that personality, and you try and change who you are, you're not being genuine. You're not being true to yourself. You want to pull out the small pieces of information that can enhance who you are, and help you develop, not change who you are completely.
Right.
So I think, while I can recommend different books and videos and this, that, and the other, my answer would be a little bit different in just be sure not to overdo it. Pull out the pieces that resonate with you, and don't get swamped in, trying to pull different places and different people, because ultimately it'll just lead to confusion. And then when you're confused, you can't perform as well as you want to. So learn from different people and podcasts and interviews and all the rest of it, but again, put a filter on it to where you're only pulling out key pieces that you can retain and actually use on a regular basis. Otherwise it's just a lot of chaos and a lot of hobbies, and that can be as detrimental as not doing anything. So that'd be my point. But if you want one specific video or something to look at the What Drives Winning website and social media accounts. They have some really simple, like concise videos that just get to the point, and they're not 4 hours long or anything. You can watch the videos in 10 minutes, and just simple little details about dealing with certain situations that really resonated with me. So that'd be one thing that I would pull out, but don't overdo it would be
Yeah.
the one key piece of advice I give there.
Yes, sir. Well, Lee, I think that's the final question to a great chat that we've had there. And to summarize that point there, I think it's great. You almost just say, just fine tune it, you know, just fine tune the ways to get better. Because if you get stuck in, like you said, just reading books to say you've read 20 books, you're probably almost better to read 3 books, but get the absolute every drip out of those 3. And I mean, that's a great bit of advice that I think as a method, like you said, rather than one thing, just a method, just fine tune who you are as opposed to change you. So, like I said, Lee, I haven't looked at my watch or my clock or anything, and I say this after everyone. I think we've been probably going for about a fortnight here. So I'll let you get back to your family, and I hope everyone's well. And thanks again for doing this, boss.
No, I appreciate it, Jordan. It's again proud to see the path that you've been on and where you are now, and about finding that release from the rigors of training and playing every day, and it seems to be one of the ways that you're doing that, and it's great to see. So keep up the good work, boss.
Thank you, sir. All right, speak soon, Lee.
Cheers, Bob.
Bye-bye.